I never want to put a property online that doesn't look like the property when I walk into it. But there's also some homes that you walk in, you're like, this is not the same, and your buyers may only have a certain amount of time, and you take them into a home that they're absolutely positive they're gonna love, and they're like, "This does not feel like or look like the house at all."
Yeah.
This is Spilling the Realty, a podcast by Sold in a Snap.
This episode's Spilling the Realty podcast is sponsored by Sold in a Snap. Sold in a Snap is Central Texas's premier real estate photography and marketing company, helping agents look incredible, stand out from the competition, and grow their business. We provide photos, tours, video, and marketing, everything that you would need to market yourself and your listings with ease. We're leading the world in real estate tech, backed by all 5-star reviews, and we're different on purpose because your success is our mission. Want to save time while you're clowns and dominate your market? Visit soldinasnap.com and see how Sold in a Snap can elevate your business or your listings today.
Hey everybody, welcome to Spilling the Realty, a podcast by Sold in a Snap. Today we're going to be talking about how to stop boring people and start getting clients. And I am so excited to welcome Sarah Martin, one of our local realtors, to the podcast today. Welcome, Sarah.
Hi, thank you for having me today.
Yeah, thanks. And so before we get into all this, I just want to kind of get to know you a little bit better and, hopefully I guess everybody gets to know you a little bit better. So tell us about yourself. First things first, like why did you get into realty in the first place?
Oh, that's an interesting question. So, yes, my name is Sarah Martin. I was raised in the Tulsa, Oklahoma area and ran to Texas as fast as we could. We moved here in 2009 with my husband and kids for my husband's job. I didn't actually get into real estate until 2019. I worked for a technology company, and then I was working for like an insurance company, and just decided that if I was going to work 60, 80 hours a week, that I kind of wanted my name on the door.
Sure.
And so, I think understanding that the harder you work, your business will start to build from that,
Yeah.
has really been great for me. So I'm a residential real estate agent, and I've been that since 2019, and have survived a pandemic.
Well, and tell me about that. So, you say, hey, I think I'm gonna be a realtor and I am going to kind of start that grind. Like when you first started, did you find it like difficult to get that first client, get that first house, like do residential? Like it's a pretty competitive field. Like what did that feel like?
Well, so yes and no, because I kind of walked into real estate in a time where my kids were getting older. And so, but I was also in a place of like, I can't fail. I don't want to fail.
Yeah.
And so there wasn't a lot of no.
Yeah. I think I'm more questioning.
No, I was just
It's gonna happen.
yes.
Cool.
And so the way I really started out my business was I was a band mom at the time. And like I was a like the booster president. I'd been it for a couple of years and very active in that. And so my first couple of closings were selling band directors' homes,
Yeah.
purchasing new ones, things like that. And so when you talk about the conversation of like your sphere of influence,
Yeah.
I very much used where I had served in the community to just say, hey, I'm a real estate agent now, or a hammer, hey, I'm a real estate agent. And that's how I kicked off my business, was just um, being very transparent. They were also watching me study for classes while
Or they knew you were in that grind.
yes, they knew it was coming. And so it was a really cool thing how that I was able to
Just kind of flow into that
yeah,
real smooth. Yeah.
yes.
So like at some point in time, was there a point where you just felt like I just feel so comfortable doing this, or did you have that first, like every first step was like an anxious first step, like, ooh, okay, now I'm closing it. This is my first closing. Like, am I gonna do it right? Do I do this or do I do that? Like, is there any of those like anxious first
Oh
steps?
my goodness. Well, so yes, I mean, I think I realized in that first year to 2 years of being a real estate agent, I was also that was the other thing is I was gonna be a real estate agent by the time I turned 40, and so that was my goal, and so, I think I became an agent in June, I turned 40 in August, right?
Okay.
So that was a goal, but I also had this I realized, like, I had ADHD, and I was like
Well, you didn't have
I
you always have it.
yeah, I've always had it, or and I was battling anxiety, and so I, for my first year and a half, was like very anxious about my contracts. I'm also like the way I run my business is I don't do anything that I don't sleep at night.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And so I, and my first broker just laughed at me the whole time. I mean, she didn't really laugh at me, but I was like, I'm gonna go to jail. Like I'm gonna mess something up, and but I felt very. It was very, very serious to me to do it correctly.
And you're probably like doing all these like first things like open houses and like I want to get traffic. I
Yeah.
want to understand the
Yeah.
business. I want to understand the behind the scenes. I want to know what goes into like what do I stage something? Do I not stage something? Like how do I kind of prep these houses to sell?
I didn't actually start thinking about staging until probably the last 2 years.
Okay.
And I mean that, like, not that I didn't think about it or not that it wasn't important and not that I didn't do it, but, we were in such a crunch, in that 2020 to 2022, 3,
Yeah.
and we've all seen that market kinda shift a little bit,
Yeah.
but there was a time and again, a lot of us, if we started in that in 2019,
Yeah.
2020, had this, like, abundance, right? I mean, there were people trying to move here and so it took me I was very busy my first couple of years. I think 23 I wasn't as busy because I turned and focused on my daughter getting married and
Sure.
so that was one of those dips.
Yeah.
Then as soon as
So it was intentional.
correct, and it was very intentional, it was very unapologetic,
Yeah.
and so, um, frustrating because I, wanna be fully real estate agent, but also fully mom and fully wife,
Yeah.
and so that sort of taught me to, how to balance all of that.
Sure.
Now am I still good at that? Probably not. I irritate my mom on a regular basis.
So we do best, right? Yeah. So we know you for being like creative, like engaging. And the whole point of today's podcast is talking about like how can I make things less boring? Like at some point in time, did you see like everything out there is just, I don't know, like it's boring. It's all the same. It all looks the same. It all feels the same. How do I stand out so that maybe a client might select me or maybe a client might be more interested in this property or whatever? Like, when did that start? Like, I know that that 2019, 20, like that was like
Yes.
plethora. But then there's a point where you're like, okay, now I've got to really start grinding. Was it in that space where you started seeing that, or is there something like I was always drawn to something more interesting than what was out there?
So, I will say that I love do I love social media? No. I do though. So there is a up and or a double-edged sword to social media, right?
It's a catch 22.
Absolutely. Like one, you have to be on it, and two, you're just like, I'm on it all the time. And so I've focused a lot more this year of planning, like scheduling things out and having that done for me. I have a calendar that'll auto post and things like that. Because I worried a lot when I would see other people's social media, but this year, what changed for me was I quit. I think I sort of came into my own into real estate of like who I was as a real estate agent, but also who I was as a person and who I wanted to be. And so I think that's one of the things that we struggle with because we have this like comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
And you're seeing agents posting and doing this, and this is amazing. And I did this, and I'm doing this, and I'm doing this. And you're like, but I did all that. I just don't know how to film it right or it look okay or it be, and so this year really came into play where I had referrals come back, and I had people who I go to church with, and I again being a band mom, a volunteer.
Yeah.
My oldest is old enough where her friends can buy houses now, and so you're moving into that role where people. I balance both because I don't just use social media for my business. I'm also out in the community. I'm also involved in things. And so and I hope I've answered that question correctly because I think this year I really kind of came into my own as far as switching the market, the way the market flipped,
Yeah.
the way it did. We had to go back to some rudimental things of like, I have to be messaging people or I have to be really, doing touches. Like I have quarterly touches on,
Yeah.
groups of people, my own clients, things like that. Also reaching out. Just I I also have a business that a lot of my clients we maintain relationship afterwards,
Sure.
and so
Yeah.
they'll
They're gonna come back to you like,
yeah.
"Hey, it's 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. My mother wants to buy a house. My kid wants to sell a house." They have somebody that they trust. So,
Well, and I do think that there's this fine line between, um, so being very careful between how I'm running my business in real estate as opposed to, say, like a um, MLM.
sure.
Because MLM really pushes,
Yeah.
like, you go to everybody you know, everybody's sister, everybody's brother, and you start a conversation, and then you're like, "Oh, by the way,
Do this.
I have this." I also respect people that wanna stay, like,
Sure.
that are doing yeah, that are well, no, that wanna run their own business, but are raising people all the time. Because 'cause I've done that, right? And so, I have just moved out of that raising people stage. My kids are grown. Yeah. And so
So, Sarah, one of the things that you kind of mentioned earlier is that you can't necessarily separate, your business from who you are. Like you guys are kind of one and the same. Like you bring a lot of your kind of internal passion of just kind of who you are and throw it into that mix of your professional business. So how does that work? Is it something where you're like, you know what, this sings to me, it feels good to me, so I'm going to do it, or do you have to be more intentional with it? Do you have to say like, I see these trends, I'm gonna start doing those things.
I do not have to be intentional about reaching out to people because my heart is people.
Yeah.
Part of that is because of my faith. And so and my tagline for everything is love people, love Waco or and that came from a, a se- another tagline that was love God, love people. And I think that that's how you have to really to be intentional and build your career, people have to know that you legitimately care about them. And so when you see my yes, you see my personal page, but my business page is not far from
Yeah.
or is not
It's
a
it's
big
pretty
yeah,
authentic.
it's
It's
pretty
who you are.
yes. And so I think one time again, I don't necessarily have, like, theme weeks. I'd like to do that. That's a goal that I have, like, I'd like to every week have
Yeah.
something about Waco. That's something I'm working on. However, I have noticed that I had a I had a moment or I had a time where I was showing property that had animals on it, and
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
naturally, when you're in a place with animals, you're gonna have animals come to you and chase you and so it was I would post, like, what farm animal had, like, stalked me at that close, and so that's how I also put that on my personal page, so
Yeah.
there to me, I can blend those both, and I think I do know my train of thought now is there was a time where it was supposed to keep your personal separate from your business.
Absolutely.
And then in the last, at least since I've gotten in, they started really pushing like being more personal with your business so they can see you and see who
Well, I mean, it makes a lot of sense, right?
no,
Like, I know that if I'm interacting with an agent on a property that I'm doing a shoot, if they're like, "All right, I'll have it unlocked for you, and just lock up when you're done." like, it's fine, and I can go do the shoot, and people don't have to be there, but if I have an agent there with me and, we're having witty conversation, like, it makes that shoot so much better, and I know that's just on my side. With your clients, with other residential, um, partners, to have that personality come through is, I think, everything.
Well, and I think that's
It
kind
gives
of the
them this comfort that they're taking care of me. They care if I'm concerned, if there's a question I have, they legitimately care to make sure that it's answered.
well, I think it's kind of an integrity issue as well. I mean, because
The point.
I want people to look at my business page and then like I said, go to my personal page and there not be much difference.
Yeah.
Like you know what I mean? Like you see me on my business page and I'm running a business and I but you also see that I'm quirky and I'm funny and I'm a little awkward.
I am the realtor.
Yeah, and then but if you then go to my personal page, you're gonna see the quirky and the awkward, and I live to like kind of annoy my husband a little bit. I think it's funny, I mean, yes, and but that's what I'm saying. I think that when you see a agent and they're that they're across the board, kind of that to me instills a little bit of confidence in like this is how my transaction's gonna be.
Yeah.
Now I know when I'm locking in and doing my job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Because that once it's time to, like, hey, pedal to the metal. We need to get the work done.
correct.
Like, I'm gonna be personal. I'm gonna love on you. I'm gonna do everything. But when it's time to get business done, let's toe the line.
Well, and that's it. It's like understanding and I am guiding my people, right? I'm guiding these people in probably the largest transaction they'll ever
Absolutely.
go through and to know when to say and I've even learned this again this year where I had a client that was like, I tremendously respect this person. Like they are, I mean, they are somebody I look up to that, and I found myself being very skittish in saying, well, I think that, I mean, you could do this and you could do this
Okay.
to the point where the person said, I chose you because I know what you're doing and I need you to tell me what to do.
Yeah.
And at that moment, I was like, oh, I know okay. After that, I didn't question whether I had the knowledge or she came to me because she knew I did have that knowledge. And so it was knowing when to be the friend and be the person that you're showing houses and having fun and seeing the quirky things that you see and also knowing when to say I think I've shown you all of this. Here's all of the data. I'm gonna advise you on this, on what to do. It's your decision, but I think we go this route. And then that relationship built,
Sure.
that person then says, okay, I'm gonna go with your advice. That's important. That's a tremendous
Yeah.
honor.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, it just builds from there because they're gonna be like, she knew what to do, she knew when to do it, and she knew how to take care of us all in that one package. So, um, I'm gonna pump the brakes a little bit. Let's just say I'm a brand new realtor, right? And let's just say, you and I have teamed up. I'm getting my kind of feet underneath me, and you're, kind of giving me some advice. Like, all right, hey, I got this new property, but I'm not sure what I should do for it. Should I get professional photos? Should I, do a Zillow tour? Like, should I, where should I list it? Like in your head, and you're leading this person, mentoring this person into a new space, and you're trying to say like, look, I want you to get the biggest bang for your buck to get this, house marketed how do you want to. Like, what is your advice to them? Like, where do you tell them to go? I mean, I'm not saying like necessarily like a photography company or something, but like, what are the tricks? What makes this go from boring to interesting and bringing those clients into those homes?
I mean, I think I did one home where I took pictures. And I was like, "Duh, I'm not doing that again." I mean, like, listen, let's know our calling, right? And I very quickly, um, moved to using you guys. Like, I use Sold in a Snap. You're the only company I use, and not because of anything more than the relationship of that too. Because I am also very much like, if I want people to continue to come back to me, and I'm a good agent for them, I also feel that way about the people I work with around that in the industry.
Yeah.
And so if I have a good relationship with, you know, a photographer, I'm gonna use that photographer.
Yeah.
I have a good relationship with a house cleaner. And they're a small business. I'm gonna use that small business. That's how I encourage. I also am very much about, you know, knowing that property and knowing, where you want to market. You're going to put in MLS. That's where
Yeah.
you're a realtor.
It's gonna live.
You're in a association, or you're in a group that you're putting that in. But I would also figure out where you're at. Are you like, where else are you marketing it? Who else is there, somebody else sharing? There's a lot of different ways that you can market your property, but I would first say that that pictures do a lot of professional pictures are fantastic for
Karen.
putting it out there. But I also want to be realistic about my listings, because I never want to put a property online that doesn't look like the property when I walk into it. But there's also some homes that you walk in, you're like, this is not the same, and your buyers may only have a certain amount of time, and you take them into a home that they're absolutely positive they're gonna love, and they're like, this does not feel like or look like the house at all.
Yeah.
And I do think that's disappointing, you know what I mean? And even just making sure that the colors are right. You know what I mean? I had if you take a picture of a cream countertop, it should look cream in the picture.
Yep.
Because people are very picky about, you know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna walk into a house.
Like,
I know how I am as a person. I'm like, well, I like that color, but that's not really what the color, you know what I mean? And so,
This wall was pink in the pictures, and now it's white.
yes,
It's
it's not the right color, right? And so that, again, I think that's where professional photography is really good. Um, because I've had some rough ones,
Yeah.
and I want to present that like, this is gonna be a house that you're gonna have to do some work to.
Do you use professional for I mean, not even professional photography, but like, do you pretty much have a game plan for all of your houses, like no matter what? Like, hey, I'm gonna get a listing, I'm gonna do this, and this, or does that change from listing to listing? Like sometimes when you have like, let's say, 1,000 square foot, listing that is kind of in a neighborhood, not very much property, versus a 5,000 foot, property that's on 50 acres. Like, what is the difference between those two things?
So there was an agent that I looked up to in the very beginning of my career, and one of the things that was said was that he did the same thing for a minimal property that he did for, say, $1 million property, right? And I agree with that to an extent, right? Part of it is that a property that's under 100,000 is not the same as $1 million property. Not because it's not a beautiful home. It's just it may be size, land, amenities around it, things like that. And so I have adjusted to that to do what's best for the home that I'm selling, because you really do have to look at it as a case by case basis. And so there is Matterporting included in that. And so I'm able to bring that in. I think I've even tried some new things with you guys as far as staging, virtual staging,
Yeah.
but I also post it with the virtual and without it.
Yeah.
Because I don't like,
See
absolutely.
the potential for the room.
Correct.
They can also see the room.
Yes, and so I've done that, and then I think there's another one where you could, like, describe your I haven't done that yet, because again, like, I'm learning, again, realtors in time management, like, you wanna go in and get pictures taken and get it done, but if you wanna really describe a property, it takes time to do that, and so that's one of my goals over the next year, is to build up how other ways to market it. But I also look at one of the things I've seen is our different systems that we're able to use, our scheduling stuff. There are places that you could go in and see, okay, I have a home that's not moving and it's listed in this price and this this price range. But the majority of our showings in the say McLennan County are they're showing in this price range. And so we I do feel like where we're at right now in the market is you can do a lot of work and marketing and everything, but if people aren't looking,
Then
they're not.
it's good for nothing.
Yeah. And I said you not good for nothing. I still feel like there's a buyer for every home,
Sure.
right? And it's just win.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and so what about like reels and stuff? Like, so you'd mentioned like Matterport, like there of course there's the Zillow 3 tours, there's the pictures that we talked about. Where do you see some of these other things like drone photography? Where do you like to use like for example drone? Like
yeah.
where do you like to use drone stuff?
So I use drone footage when it's over an acre of land
Okay.
because I want to see boundary lines and I want to see, I
Hard to capture that with a still photo.
correct. And so I mean at over probably over an acre, I'll add a drone shot in because I want them to be able to see, you know, I have a husband who wants 20 acres of land that wants trees on it. And so I know I kind of think about him in every shot I do, and if it's over a certain amount of land, because he's gonna wanna see, are there trees on it? Or is it hilly? Or is it you know what I mean? And so
That's an easy
absolutely,
to
it's just a gauge, right? And so, that's how I started with the photography side of
deciding some of those things, yeah. And then, like reels, have you been doing more with reels or, you mentioned social media, love it, hate it, catch 22. You do one good reel, expectation is you do another one
Oh, yeah.
and then another one. So
When I talked about the farm animals, I had donkeys walk up to me in a property and I turned and took a picture of them, and they looked like a rap album because they were all just standing there like, "What's up?" And there was, like, 6 of them, like, they are just like it looked like
but this is a perfect situation. But when you get a property where there is just things that you don't expect to see, I mean, not necessarily you don't expect to see animals on a farm, of course, but like whenever we take pictures, every once in a while we'll go out to one of these properties and we'll do reels of like things that we don't anticipate seeing. And I remember feeling like, sometimes, when you're out on a property and you're doing a shoot, sometimes you'll just like run into a goat, and it's like a goat on the or a goat on a table.
Yes.
I remember, and it's like, and there's a goat on the table, and we still have to do the shoot. But honestly, it makes for the best content because
It's great, and that's the thing is, like, right so I try to post every day.
yeah,
You'll probably not see, like, a day in the life for me because, I know there are a lot of
always so different.
yeah, I mean, and there are a lot of people that I struggled for several years to go, "Okay, well, I need to get up and do this, and I need to get up and do this, and need to get up and do this." Um, I pivoted from that into somebody telling me how my day needed to go for me to be successful.
Yeah,
I had to figure out what was best for me day to day to be successful.
gotcha.
And I'm not a morning person. Like I am not like I have done,
Good.
you know what I mean?
Like,
But
know where those strengths are. Like I am the morning person.
understanding your
Get it all done.
correct. And but I'm also like once I lock in, I c- I am also a person that can work all night long.
Yeah,
Does that there's no middle ground for me. And so
touch that groove. And
yes,
don't touch me.
I love it.
Talk to me. I was
Yes.
in. And
Because I'll do a month's worth of marketing if I could knock it all out.
yeah.
And I'm
Actually, I'm gonna talk on that. You had mentioned earlier about scheduling your
Mhm.
posts.
I do.
And this is a really good tip here. Like in a space where there is a grind and people are expecting content from you, you can spend, like you said, like I don't know, an hour, couple hours planning out a month's worth
Yeah.
of a post. So
I try to on Monday.
more about that. Like,
So I do a Bible study on Monday morning. And then that's usually like 8 or 9. I'm usually there by 9.
Yeah.
And then it's till about 11. And I try to give myself to get home. And then I try and on Mondays from like 11:45 until I feel like I've done enough for the week.
yeah,
If I could knock out the entire week in
that
that
session. Yeah.
one session, I breathe better,
Yeah.
right? Because then it's almost like an expectation that I need to be doing it. Now, am I good at it every week? No, but I also like post about what's happening because my to say that I'm doing real estate 8 to 5 every single day is not true because I still think that there's been a huge conversation of like work life balance.
Sure.
Right? I will never have a balance.
Right.
Because
Y-
we're in real estate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I also have started going, I don't have anything going on right now and I'm tired and I need to sit and I need to rest.
What a smart
You know what I mean?
for an ADHD brain, right?
It's not easy. I mean, I'm not saying that I don't doom scroll. I'm not saying that, but I think when you start realizing that you're, I think any new business owner, because I had this conversation with a friend who was a photographer that she does weddings and things like that. When you're building your business, there is when you're in a regular 8 to 5, you know what you're supposed to do.
Be here at this time.
Correct.
Use this thing.
And you know every day you're supposed to do this thing. But when you're in your own business, you rise and fall by the work that you do.
Yeah.
And so that's where I pulled back and said, I could do all the social media I want. One viral post is great. I've never had that. I may never will. I don't know if I care. What I'm
Also, this podcast is going to go.
I hope so. I hope that they see. But I'm also gone and said, I want to have this hobby and I want to do this. And so I've got to meet other people in different, I've strategized that in a way that I get to do what I want to do, that is building my business as well.
Well, it's like autonomy with, your decision making, like like you said, I mean, I can't imagine being in that space where it fluctuates so heavily and then you have to be intentional with your self-care, right?
I think you have
Because
to,
if you don't, then
yeah,
you're going to be grinding all the time.
and you
So,
can wear yourself out. I mean, there was, I mean, and going back to, when you focus so much on social media,
yeah.
there is this issue where you're like, well, this person just had 3 closings, and oh my gosh, what are they doing? Where it could have been the same closing, 3 different shots.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that
Point.
I'm not saying that they're not doing that because I think there's so much for
But
everybody.
it comes right back to you and what are you doing?
Correct.
Like, am I doing something wrong? Should I be doing something more?
Mm,
Do you feel like you're constantly comparing yourself to other agents?
I did in the beginning.
Okay.
I did in the beginning, but I also think like where I'm at my age, um, over the last year and a half, it's been very transformative. My mom has went through cancer, and then in turn there was some health stuff that I had to battle from that, of my own,
Yeah.
that puts it into perspective in a way of like, okay, I want to be intentional about my work and intentional about my family and intentional about my, you know, about my time as well. And also I understanding that not everybody's going to love you. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like not everybody's going to love you. I'm not everybody's cup of tea, you know, and that's okay.
Well, I really appreciate all this. Like, this is some really good insight. And, if we're, again, we're coming back to like a realtor is different, right? Each realtor is going to approach a little bit different. Of course, at the back end, with the business side, people start getting, you know, very kind of locked in with what you have to do. But you're successful for a reason. So what makes you different from other people? What's unique about Sarah?
I live in the belief that I'm here and I was put on this planet because the world needed Sarah in the capacity of what God made me to be, right? And so I started really looking that, and that's a broad response, sure, for real estate as well. But what I was saying is even in my business, I I care about my people, and I mean that in, um, I say that a lot of my clients become family.
Yeah.
That's a very real. That's a very real statement. I mean, like, for me, because when I moved here, I didn't know anybody. Like, we moved here and I knew my husband and I knew my children. And 15 years later, I'm successful to me real estate agent. I mean, am I going to be the best? Am I going to be the top selling? Maybe not.
Yeah.
But I'm also content in that. Like, if I became the top selling agent, I'm happy. If I'm selling right here, I'm happy. You know what I mean? And that's because I want every client to know that they were brought into my life, our world, to work together. And that seems broad and it seems so ethereal or whatever, but that I have this moment to help them.
Yeah.
And I believe that. I mean, and so I think that I am special in my own right because I'm intentional about my care for them and working hard. And I and I'm educated. Like, I want to stay educated. I take classes. I do my best to stay up to top of what's going on in the market. And so when I'm advising clients who are buying or selling, I'm advising them from the education that I've learned,
Yeah.
you know.
When do you see do you see people like other realtors struggle with stuff like that? Like, I mean, I know for you, you're saying, like you're here for a reason, right? And you're putting your full self out there, um, and you truly feel that this is your calling, and or this is something that you're here to do. Do you see other realtors make a mistake of thinking like, this is something that the realty space needs me as compared to like I need it, or maybe there's some trip places where they trip because they assume something that didn't come to fruition.
I, on some level, try my best to. I mean, I did go through a phase where it was like, if I was doing what this person was doing, maybe my business would grow. Or if I would do this, or how is this person doing? And I had to get out of my own head on that.
Yeah.
And I think, you can, as a, now I would be considered a seasoned agent. I think over 4 or 5 years, you're not new anymore.
Right.
Even though you still feel like every day is new, I feel like real estate's kind of like a jello mold. You may step in it, and because that's just people in life, and homes aren't perfect. We're imperfect people, right? But I want people to work with me, real estate agents, title people, photographers, contractors, um, house cleaners,
Yeah. Oh,
anything.
doodle, yeah.
I want them to know that there is no stupid question.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't know, ask, because that's what I've been taught.
Yeah.
And I want to be an agent that people go, she's really nice to work with, or I didn't know this, and I could teach another agent through it, guide them through it, even if they don't work, even if they're not in my own brokerage. Say, hey, this is don't we you want to do that,
Yeah.
because because my goal is that if I'm the selling agent or I'm the listing agent, that I'm selling the property, and that the buyer's agent is bringing the buyer for the property.
Yeah.
That it's not a
Yeah.
the end goal is to sell the property, right? And everybody walk away.
It'll benefit. We're all
Happy.
goody, but
Yes. Now, does that happen all the time? No. But are we trying our best? I hope so.
kind of that said, do you see like realtors ever kind of stuck on like, I don't want to give away any of my secrets, or,
Yeah.
I just, I want to hold on to this and I want anybody to know. Um, and like, what's your feelings about that? Does it feel like it's smart to do that? Or is it like, man, like kind of a selfish thing, or like we should all be lifting each other up together?
I half and half, right? I've seen people that are like, hold it very close. Or you'll say, "What are you doing? This awesome," and they're like, "Well, I don't care." Like, I mean, now I have things that
But you
I paid
you put in the
for.
work to be where you're at, though.
Correct.
So if you spilled the tea,
Well, and I don't now I have things that I paid for,
sure.
like or like if I paid for a system, I can tell you this, I don't care. I'll tell you the system, I ordered for it.
Yeah.
Right. But I may not be able to give you that stuff because I've signed something within that system that says, you're purchasing this not to give it out to people, right?
Sure.
And so, but I have no issue saying this is what I use, or I use Canva, or or within that, you know what I mean. And so, um, because I believe there's enough business for everybody if they're working hard enough at it, right? Because I think everybody has their niche. Everybody has something that a buyer or seller gravitates to as to why they want to work with them.
Yeah. So I want to jump off of that and kind of go into our final segment. So what would you say, Sarah, you've given us a lot to think about. So what would you say though, if you had to do a couple final takeaways, some things to think about, maybe some advice for new agents, people that are trying to maybe get a refresh on their business? Like, what are some of your takeaways?
I mean, I can give all I think maybe take away what I would wanna say to, like, a consumer as opposed to, like, a real estate agent.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a lot of advice being thrown out there, for real estate agents, but, one thing is when you're in a brokerage, you 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 do what your broker tells you to do, and so for me to throw advice out to a real estate agent, it may not be what the
They're going to be with a
right.
brokerage. Yeah.
What I would say to a consumer, if you're looking to sell your home and you're having an agent come through your home and say, "Okay, what do I need to do to sell my house?" That real estate agent's job is to come in and kind of pick your house apart
Yeah.
because they're they're going it's not to offend you. It's just we're walking through with buyers right now who are picking your house apart. And
We're that's going to praise it.
well, yeah,
Have to have
yes.
all of our.
But it's not just even that. It's even now if you're selling your house and you're like, "Oh, I'm just gonna," it's just not the same as it was in 2020 where you could put your house on the market and have, you know, 25 offers on it. Now, where sellers are having to come in and have things done, and so to not be offended by anything a real estate agent says to you about, here's some things that we suggest you do to your house to get it ready to be on the market. And here's why. Because our job is to come in and kind of give you that hard take.
Yeah.
And say, you need to fix this or clean this up or declutter this or fix this crack or have a foundation person come out and disclose it and tell people, like, you wanna when you're filling out seller's disclosures and you're filling out, you wanna write everything down that you never wanna talk about again. And you know what I mean? Like, tell them about your property because they're buying your house. They're buying that home.
Yeah.
And so that is the one thing I say to every seller when they're writing on their seller's disclosure, that you put everything on the seller's disclosure that you never want to talk about again.
Yeah.
Because it's just being transparent,
Yeah.
And for a buyer walking in and you may see a house and you love it and you're like, but I don't know how I feel about the way the wall looks
Yeah.
from this or whatever. Ask questions.
Yeah.
There are reasons that you have the time frame that's negotiated to have inspections and things like that. If you think a foundation person needs to come out there, have a foundation person come out there. You have the right to have all of that investigated and looked at, so you are very confident the day you're signing on your home.
Yeah. Because you don't want to like leave there without questions answered, right? Or without something that was, unattended or something. So
Well, and I have had buyers say, "I want this done, and I want this done," and in my back of my mind, I'm like, "It's not really necessary, or it's not like," e but that is not my home. That is their home, and if this helps them be confident in their purchase, I'm doing what they tell me to do.
yeah, and sometimes it's just a matter of like, I'll ask for you.
Yes,
Like it's not gonna hurt to ask.
yes.
And I can give them that confidence that she's listening to me
Well,
or advocating for me.
and I think there's a very safe thing in saying the least they can say is, or the worst they could say is no.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And then you have your answer, right? And so I think as consumers need to know that your real estate agent works for you. And if and they they're doing what they're advising you, and they're taking the tools that they have to advise you. And then, but at the end of the day, that's your decision.
Yeah.
And to let talk it through with your agent, have long conversations. That's our job.
Yeah.
And that's how I treat my job.
Yeah.
I'll stay on the phone with you for an hour. We may end up talking about your kids for a while, our kids for a while, but my job is by the end of the phone call that you hang up and you go, "I'm ready."
All my answers have been,
Yeah,
all my questions have been.
I feel confident in the purchase, or I feel confident in what I'm selling.
Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for being on. I so appreciate the conversation. And I love your take on the consumer. I think that is such an important piece that sometimes we miss. And at the end of the day, we're either buying or selling for those people, and it is their properties. And so I appreciate your take on that. Sarah Martin, everybody, with Kelly Realtors. If you guys want to connect with Sarah, we will put all our information in the show notes below. And we're, again, so thankful to have you, Sarah.
Wonderful. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, thank you. And that's our show. Thank you guys for spilling the real tea with us. And we're looking forward to seeing you on the next episode. And make sure you like and subscribe. And we will see you then. This episode of Spilling the Real Tea podcast is sponsored by Sold in a Snap. Sold in a Snap is Central Texas' premier real estate photography and marketing company, helping agents look incredible, stand out from the competition, and grow their business. We provide photos, tours, video, and marketing, everything that you'd need to market yourself and your listings with ease. We're leading the world in real estate tech, backed by all 5-star reviews, and we're different on purpose because your success is our mission. Want to save time while your clients dominate the market? Visit www.soldinasnap.com and see how Sold in a Snap can elevate your business or your listing today.
And that's today's pour. Thanks for spilling the real tea with us. Don't forget to follow the podcast so you don't miss the next hot pour of real estate talk. And remember, this is just the tea, not legal, real estate, or financial advice.